Hello and welcome to News Today. My name is Kimini Nyamani Amano. Coming up, Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security calls for the prosecution of persons found culpable of financial irregularities in the 2012 Auditor General's report. Also to come, thousands continue to pay their last respect to late South African President Nelson Mandela. These are our main stories for this hour. Stay with me. I'll bring you details of these stories and plenty more in a moment. Thank you very much for staying on. There's been a sharp rise in waterborne diseases among residents of Drobonso and the Setra Fram Plains district of the Ashanti region. Despite the provision of boreholes there, residents in the mainly farming community are said to prefer sharing the same water source as their cattle because they complain borehole water is salty. Mohammed Nuruddin visited the area and has filed this report.
The newly created district lacks good roads, electricity, no hospitals and senior high schools. Even though the district's capital, Drobonso, has access to boreholes, some of them are broken down. But even with the functional ones, people of the area complain it is salty. They continue to fetch water from Afram, Drobon and Abrifa streams, despite being provided with these boreholes. This is one of the streams residents of the community use. While some were busily washing their clothes and their bicycles here, others could be seen drinking the stream water, indifferent to the pollution taking place close by.
That can cause disease.
Some of the common diseases afflicting the residents, especially children, include Buruli ulcer, diarrhea and bilharzia. With support of the District Health Directorate of Kumeu, victims are treated at the Agogo Government Hospital, several minutes drive from the district capital, Drobonso. Assemblyman for Drobonso, Thomas Edu, says the situation leaves much to be desired. Even though there is no available data on these conditions, health officials are worried over the situation. District Health Director Elizabeth Safo tells Joynews her outfit faces an extraordinary task of fighting the menace, regardless of intense public education.
Chairman of Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, has described as worrying the 2012 Auditor General's report, which brought to the fore some financial irregularities amounted to 2 billion cedis from the accounting books of public boards, corporations and other statutory institutions. According to him, recommendations they have made in the past have not yet been implemented and urged boards and ministries in charge of the various sectors to ensure proper supervision and controls. He spoke to Bright Nana Amfo on Wednesday, and here's a playback.
Mamenu, sincerely, this is not new at all to you, I'm sure.
Definitely, yes. It's never new. It keeps on recurring.
And that should worry, especially the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament.
Yes, definitely, yes. Not only Public Accounts Committee, all parliamentarians and all citizens who have the proper management of our resources, at their heart. We keep on talking about these things. We keep on requesting them to retrieve some of these salaries irregularities, the cash irregularities. We can't understand why supervision and control systems are weak. You know, they keep on coming, and it's a problem. We have identified some challenges with some of these boards and corporations. Accountants don't seem to be like accountants. They don't know their left and right. You could easily see from the type of reports we've been reading. Keep on asking them to replace them. These things are not happening. So now it's like it's a challenge. And every year in, year out, they keep on bringing about the same similar challenges. Stores irregularities, cash irregularities, war irregularities, debtors and things like that. So it's a challenge. And all these boards and corporations are state enterprises, state-owned institutions. They are boards. And the boards should make sure that management are functioning very efficiently. They work under certain sector ministers. The ministers have to ensure that some of these things are reduced to the barest minimum. But then, I mean, nothing seems to be happening. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge, but do you see this as inability of these officers to have the capacity to deal with these challenges, or you think that it is sheer thievery on the part of these officers?
There are two things. When you look at it, maybe if I will quote from the Supreme Court, on the face of the pink sheet, okay, you find it difficult to identify whether there are deliberate actions and omissions to allow or to permit some people to make do with some of state resources. But on the face of the report, you could see it's like some, let me use a very unacceptable word, clerical challenges that should not be there.
Right.
We wonder at times why, from the reporting, you could feel that the person who is doing the work doesn't seem to know, doesn't seem to have skills, doesn't seem to have the knowledge that will be even permit him to take such a function as a career, as a job, as somewhere that he should earn his, living from. But then they happen, you know, and we keep on making recommendations. Go and find the proper storekeeper, go and replace this accountant, but it's unfortunate.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security, David Akbe, is calling for the prosecution of persons found culpable of financial irregularities with regards to public funds.
When I listen to the parliamentarian saying that all the time they've given the recommendation and it is not followed, and therefore they also said aloof, unconcerned, then it means that, they are not doing what is good for this country. Why are they appointed to be, there as public accounts committee members? They are there to make sure that certain things are done properly. And therefore, if they are giving a recommendation that this and that and that need to be done in a way that we could mitigate some of these situations, and it is not followed, they need to call those people who are involved, who are implicated. We've never called those people on board to come and explain why certain things were done wrong. Then it means that they are not being respected. We should start prosecuting people. We should start investigating those people. If they are found culpable of doing anything wrong, we should put them before the law court for them to answer. If we don't do all those things, everybody will take this country into a ransom. That he can mess up with anything, and then the person will go scot-free. We should start prosecuting people. We should start taking them to court to face the full rigors of the law.
Head of Economic and Organized Crimes Office, Mote Akpaji, is worried over media's over-concentration on political office holders on issues of corruption. The Yoko boss noted this has served as a convenient cover for some public office holders and private persons to engage in corruption. He has tasked the media to endeavor to follow up on corruption in especially the private sector.
There have been, maybe rightly so, a serious concentration on political office holders. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's very good to have an issue and concentrate on political office holders. From our work, however, we think that has served as a convenient cover for other public office holders, and very importantly, people in private life to be seriously engaged in activities which are corrupt and which, to my mind, are attacking the very foundations of our economy. Corruption can lead to deaths, and they do. They do. Unfortunately, that type of corruption, we as a nation tend to overlook. The Wick Bridge, which was constructed, yes, it was under the supervision of a public official, but who undertook the construction? That tax which was dodged, who undertook it? I know for a fact that every public official has tax deducted directly from his salary, even before he's paid. I am happy when the press concentrates on public officials, particularly political office holders. I would wish they went beyond that.
Over the telephone is Suleiman Abrahima. He's Deputy Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa. He's joined us over the telephone. Hello, Suleiman. Hello, Suleimana.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us on News Today. But from Mote Akpaji, the media is over-concentrating on political corruption. What would be your own assessment of media reportage and corruption in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think to a large extent, it would be right to say that the media, particularly in recent times, have been doing quite well in terms of highlighting issues of corruption, revealing issues of corruption, and presenting to the public, matters that should be of concern to the public as far as transparency in public dealings and public transactions are concerned. That is not to say that the media have been perfect or the media have been that effective at doing that, but I think gradually there is an increase in the way the media is highlighting or covering issues of corruption.
Would you also say that the media has over-concentrated on political corruption?
Well, one could say yes, but it is rightly so, because in as much as it is important to also focus on what is happening in the public sector, one must acknowledge that to a large extent, if the political administration, if the governance of, the governance sector gets it right, and corruption is not happening within government circles, to a large extent, that is something that would definitely percolate to the private sector. And so, yes, it is true, the media is focusing so much on corruption in governance and corruption within the political realm, but I think that is naturally what should be happening, because if we get it right there, to a large extent, corruption also in the private sector will be minimized.
Let's look at the importance of media coverage on political corruption.
Well, corruption is a canker for every society, and I think that one doesn't have to belabor the importance of rooting out corruption in our society. And of course, one way of dealing with corruption is actually bringing it to the public domain and mobilizing public opinion against such acts. And to a large extent, it is the media that has this power to communicate what is happening to the masses, and also to mobilize the voices of the masses to act against any such acts that would be happening wherever it's occurring. And so, for me, it is the most important, one of the most important things that the media should be doing.
And if media is to venture into covering private corruption as well, corruption within the private sector, how will that change the conversation when it comes to corruption?
Well, I think, as I said initially or early on, it's important for the media to focus on all aspects of corruption, whether it's happening in the private sector or the public sector. But to a large extent, because the public sector drives whatever happens, the rules and regulations, the procurement processes, and all of that is determined by the public sector. It's important that the media focuses on there. But let me say, for example, talking about the private sector and the media's responsibility in highlighting issues of corruption and transparency. As you may be aware, over the past 2 weeks and even just yesterday, the Media Foundation, for example, is highlighting something that has to do with the media fund, which is something that has to do with the media. It has to do with the media ourselves. And I think it is one of the things that is, there's absolutely lack of transparency. There's absolutely lack of accountability in the way the 1 million Ghana cedis has been managed.
Right.
And yet the media, I think has kept quiet on it to a large extent. But if it had been something, let's say $100,000, or 100,000 cedis issue involving a minister or a DCE, I'm very sure that the media would have picked it up quite strongly. But here we are, a fund that is supposed to contribute to our development. There's no transparency, there is no accountability in the way this money has been expended. And the minister was telling us that 952 laptops were bought for journalists. Who were the recipients? We don't know. How were they determined? We don't know. And yet, this is not receiving much attention from the media. And I think this is an example of saying that the media should also focus on other things happening elsewhere and not just on those involving politicians and political groups.
That must be very disappointing for you at Media Foundation for West Africa. But since you've spoken about the media fund, let's talk about it for a minute. This media fund, earlier we were told that it had to do with an issue of disbursements. Then we are shocked by the fact that over 900 laptops have been given to some journalists or media house. It's unclear. How should we go about handling this 1 million Ghana cedis?
Well, first of all, I think that as the media, we cannot, and I think that the legitimacy in pressurizing government or pursuing issues of transparency and accountability on our part will be highly damaged if we don't make the effort of seeking transparency and accountability on this particular fund. First of all, as you rightly said, we were told that the issue or the difficulty has been that a mechanism has not been put in place for disbursement. And then we are told yesterday by the minister that, the money has already been spent. We bought 952 laptops. And we're given to, the process was through consultation with GEBA, GJA, Prempak. Now, GEBA comes out to say, we have never been part of any consultation. We have never received any laptops. Now, the minister says a chunk of those 952 laptops were given to the GJA. Earlier, the GJA president told us that, well, as far as they know, yes, there were some laptops presented for the GJA award, but they were not told that is coming from the media fund. And as far as he knows, the mechanism for disbursement has not been put in place, and so the fund must be intact. So at this stage, I think one of the things that we have to pursue is to get the GJA to come quite clear on whether or not they've received a quantity of laptops, how many were they, who were the beneficiaries, what was the criteria for selecting the beneficiaries. Now, if we sort out on our own, which is the GJA, then if there are any other questions, we can go back to the ministry. Because we say the media must be pursuing government, put government on its toes, ensure that there is accountability and transparency. The GJA is the umbrella union of journalists in this country, and it should be the least or the last institution to do anything that raises questions of transparency and accountability.
A lot of journalists have come under the impression that really the GJA is indifferent about this 1 million Ghana cedi fund and how soon it can help better the jobs of journalists. What are your views on that?
No, as I said, the ministry is saying that the GJA received the chunk of the 952 laptops that were bought, and indeed that the GJA had indicated to the ministry that what is required critically by journalists in terms of capacity building is laptops, or our laptops. And so that was why the ministry also procured the laptops and presented them to the GJA. So if at this stage the GJA is indifferent, perhaps it could be as a result of the fact that they got what they requested for. But it is not clear, because as I said, the GJA president had not given this indication that, well, we've received 400 or 500 laptops and made them available to our members, and that is helping contribute to their capacity and so on and so forth. So I think importantly we should get some clarification from the GJA whether indeed that was their request, that what journalists needed were laptops.
Right.
And they received this number of laptops and presented this to these journalists, and this was the criteria for selecting those journalists.
Suleimana, we'll leave it here for now. Suleimana Brahima is Deputy Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. Let's do some other stories now. Asante Henry Otumfuo Osetutu II has sent a word of caution to caretaker chiefs in the Ashanti region to stop selling lands entrusted in their care. He said it is unlawful. Caretaker chiefs take extreme opportunity to sell stool lands. Asante Henry maintained people holding interim chieftaincy positions cannot sell land without his approval. A report by Muhammad Nuruddin.
As a student administrator, statutory body, I appoint also officer of the Lands Commission in this named Nana Kobo. So no year, as I say, after that I have upon I am a few name. So ground rent no money be a Yati, so no be teaching a big war, your Tiago Nazonia Pumiano, so and a big war, when for the traditional council. So now this is now said ABS, Nana Niwa says so really students administrator, Marshall Commander, and only was a permanent system. Nana Niwa, so none of for no sack yet the traditional council. So that for Nana was set up. So I said, so and about next is a no, they will say a Margaret students administrator, so yeah, in sequence, traditional council no was a function, 20% of the was a demand. So it won't be a piano name to the scanning now. So you know, Papa, one to the way. So the Serbia, Serbia, a year, Sweden, so Tinanam, so money would mean Tom as I said, so and yet Santiago, so yeah, I had done walkers, so more by himself or hand. So bet me, this is the main of the woman here. So Tina, or yes, a minimum of points that you will answer with me. So this is what anybody who put on this as you are. And know what it will be one. So, and no, the Nanya, no man, the Casas and Yak Chichon, and then Mamma said, Sam,
Reverend Minister in the Ashanti region has narrowly escaped death when fire destroyed the mission house where he lives in Drobonso. Reverend Father Emmanuel Suba, who is in charge of the Catholic Church in the area, sustained physical burns in an effort to rescue church documents from the fire.
The fire is suspected to have started from a power generator in the mission house. Father Suba, with the support of people in the community, managed to salvage the church vehicle before the fire gutted the 3-bedroom house. Unfortunately, the Reverend Minister was trapped in one of the rooms when he tried to save some important items. Father Suba told Joy News he was motivated to find his way out by the shouts of residents who thought he had been burnt to death.
A whole lot of smoke and vapor was entering my body, my nostrils, but then I wanted to rescue certain important documents out of the house. But the more I did, the fire was burning my hand, and I decided. I heard noise from people outside, because by then people had come around the house, so people were shouting, were crying out that Father, the Reverend Father, my Catholic priest, is being burnt. So that really motivated me to actually abandon everything and come out. So when I came out, I really felt unconscious. I didn't know what happened next.
District Chief Executive for Sechua Front Plains, Donko Fuseini, described the incident as unfortunate. He, however, said it is a wake-up call to communities in the area to take precautions. The DC noted the district will soon start fire education programs in the fire-prone area.
Sechua Front Plains has a perennial problem of bushfires, both concerning domestic and then, farm produce. Last year, for instance, we have about over 70 houses getting burned during the Hamatan season. You see, because most of our farmers are living in thatch houses, the lettuce park, and then you see fire blazing everywhere. So I believe this time around, if those with concrete and roofing sheets are getting bent to this level, then you can imagine what can happen to the thatch houses if we don't step up our anti-bushfire campaigns.
Months ago, several houses in the district were destroyed as a result of fire outbreak.
The World Health Organization says global efforts to curb malaria have saved the lives of 3.3 million people since the year 2000, cutting global death rates from the mosquito-borne disease by 45% and by half in children under 5. The WHO said in its World Malaria Report 2013 that expanded prevention and control measures helped produce declines in malaria deaths and illness. Of the 3.3 million lives saved, most were in the 10 countries with the highest malaria burden and among children under age 5, the group most afflicted by the disease. According to the WHO report, child deaths fell to fewer than 500,000 in 2012. Overall, there were an estimated 207 million cases of malaria in 2012, which caused some 627,000 deaths, according to the report, which includes information from 102 countries with malaria transmission. There's more ahead on News Today. Don't go away. I'll be right back. You're welcome back to News Today. Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Neil Lante van der Poy, has charged the various unions in the textile industry to come up with their own assessment of the operations of the task force clamping down on pirated textiles in the next 2 weeks. At a meeting with stakeholders, he said the various reports which should reach him in the next 2 weeks will inform Parliament's deliberations on the streamlining of the task force's work. Meanwhile, the CID and National Security, according to the Deputy Minister, will conduct random checks on pirated textile prints on the market in the absence of the task force.
Between the Deputy Trade Minister, the Anti-Pirated Textiles Task Force and stakeholders in the textile industry forms part of processes to review the operations of the task force after government announced the suspension of the activities following complaints of abuse against traders. The task force, however, denies the allegations against them.
If there's a way out, what I would suggest we do is that anytime the task force is going to the market, we should have a video coverage. So nobody will say he has been beaten or somebody has taken forcefully from them if eventually we have to go. At times you go and the traders will physically fight, especially those who have the pirated textiles. So far, to me, when we started, most of the traders felt that it wasn't a good business for them to do because we always go to the market.
The textile workers are meanwhile all for the operations of the task force because they say its operations assure them their jobs are safe.
Yes, they may have problems, but they also, we've taken time to educate them to the extent that even nationwide outreach program to even educate the customs officers to know how to, to identify the fake ones and all that. And so it is no secret. But each time we meet them, say, they don't know. They don't know. So how many times do you want us to engage you or to educate you? What we want to see is the sustenance of the task force.
Though the traders appreciate the work of the task force, they say the problem goes beyond confiscating the prints on the market.
It is the importers in Togo that is doing this thing. The importers here in Ghana that import through the Tema ports, their goods go through vetting, of which Ministry of Trade, GSA, and then the textile manufacturers are there. They look at the designs and they vet it. If it's not for anybody, they allow you to bring it in. But because there have been a discrimination in terms of taxes, that is how we see it. Because we believe that we are paying higher taxes, especially when we bring the goods through the thermal ports. And the import from the borders are so cheap. So we are suggesting that, look, the task force should really look at the point of entry. That is where the problem is coming from.
The Deputy Minister of Trade, Lante van der Poy, after hearing the various views, concluded the work of the task force will have to be reviewed.
We're going to give ourselves a period of 2 weeks to work on the various petitions and then fashion out common denominators. And then we'll call the general body again to look at the issues. Within a month, we are supposed to give our decision, final decision on this issue to the minister for him to forward it to cabinet. We've informed the police, especially the CID, and they'll be doing what we call random moves into the markets. We also have national security cooperating with that. So in the interim, we are not going to sleep.
He, however, called on the textile manufacturing firms to go ahead and prosecute importers of pirated textiles as it is against the law.
Government says it is taking steps to effectively deal with the many integrity problems at the country's ports which cause delays in clearing goods. Trade and Industry Minister Haruna Iddrisu says doing business at the ports of Ghana had become so difficult it was affecting the country's rating as friendly business destination. Importers have over the years complained about the cumbersome processes of clearing goods at the ports. They argue the ports are unattractive compared to Ghana's neighboring countries. Now, government says it is addressing the situation, and according to the sector minister, government is working on a number of strategic initiatives to ease the problems at the ports. For instance, he said the number of scanners at the port would be increased to facilitate easy and early clearance of goods. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority has therefore been tasked to designate a place for the scanners. Meanwhile, the latest Afrobarometer report by the Center for Democratic Development indicates 68% of Ghanaians do not know how government uses revenues from the extractive industry. The report further reveals a high official impunity in the country as 44% of Ghanaian officials go unpunished for committing criminal offences.
The new Afrobarometer report discloses findings on a survey conducted in 22 out of 34 African oil and mineral producing countries that derive 8 to 25% of their GDP from the extractive industry. 62% of the sampled countries said it is difficult to track the use of minerals and oil revenues by government, a situation which makes it impossible for them to assess how effectively the resources are used for economic growth. The citizens of Guinea were found to be the most uninformed about the use of the resources.
We come up with a finding that says that there's a lot of impunity in those countries. And that's why we also find that in those same countries, there's a lot of opacity in government. We need to do a lot of work in improving government's commitment to rule of law and government commitment to making budgets and expenditures more open. And that these are the kinds of things we need to do in order to be able to manage our extractive resources prudently.
Although in Ghana, the Finance Ministry publishes reports on the use of oil revenues, education on those publications remains low. The report indicates 65% of the sample says the media is playing its watchdog role effectively, but they recommend the Ghanaian media especially to do a lot more education on the use of revenues in the extractive sector.
How often do you do stories that will inform people about how taxes and revenues are used? When you do it, how do you frame it? And what space does it occupy on the news agenda? And do you follow up on it? And it's only if you do this consistently that there will be traction in the minds of people. I bet you if you ask Ghanaians today, you said the word merchant bank, everybody or most people will have an opinion. And that's because it's been on the news agenda everywhere for a long time. I'm not so sure that we treat stories like this in a similar manner.
In international business, Air Canada has ordered 61 Boeing 737 MAX planes worth $6.5 billion at list prices, a big win for the plane maker over its rival Airbus. The planes will replace its current fleet of Airbus narrow-body aircraft. Air Canada said the new planes will help it cut fuel and maintenance costs on a per-seat basis by more than 20%. Airlines have been keen to upgrade their fleets to more fuel-efficient aircraft amid high fuel prices and falling profit margins. Air Canada's order includes options and rights to purchase 48 additional Boeing planes. That's it for the business segment. Coming up is sports, and it's brought to you by Tigo. 5 FIFA World Cup Player of the Year, George Weah, says the Black Stars can reach the last four of the tournament. Ghana is in the same group with Germany, Portugal, and United States of America, which is Group G.
Predict victory, I would tell you that we will win. But again, it's hard work, it's preparation. I just hope that our 5 African countries prepare to go to the World Cup. They did very well in South Africa. They represented well, most especially Ghana. But I hope that they go beyond what they did. And I hope all of our FAs, those who are responsible for Africa or going there to represent us, will do everything, putting mechanism that will help us, even go to final. I know it's not an easy task, but it's achievable. Nothing is impossible. So Africa, when they prepare well, I'm sure we'll have a surprise in the World Cup. I just hope for the best for Africa. And we will be rooting for them. We'll be cheering them. But definitely, I'm not Liberian, but because of my affiliation with Ghanaians, my friends, the way Ghana treated us.
That's it for sports, brought to you by Tigo. You're welcome back to News Today. Now, mourners are continuing to pay their last respects to late South African President Nelson Mandela as his body lies in state for a second day in Pretoria. Mandela's widow, Graca Michelle, current South African President Jacob Zuma, and former leaders Thabo Mbeki and F.W. de Klerk were among those who filed past the casket on Wednesday. Since Wednesday, thousands of people have visited the amphitheater of the Union buildings, and you have some live pictures from Pretoria on your screen at the moment. South Africa's official seat of government to view the anti-apartheid icon's body, and members of the public are there, as you can see on your screen. The viewing site is the same place where Mandela was sworn in as South Africa's first black president in 1994 after being imprisoned for 27 years for his role in the struggle against white minority rule. On Tuesday, more than 60,000 people turned out to honor Mandela at a memorial service in Johannesburg. Mandela's burial takes place Sunday in his childhood hometown of Kunu, where the Thembu community will conduct a traditional ceremony. A National Day of Reconciliation will take place on 16th December 2013 when a statue of Mandela will be unveiled at the Union building. There also have been reports that the sign language interpreter used at the memorial service on Tuesday happens to be fake. And so the government is to hold a press conference later today to address those concerns. Solomon Jojo Kobna is a Joynews reporter. He joined us from Pretoria earlier today on News Desk. Let's have a playback of that.
It is one humorous topic. I mean, people, it's so funny. I mean, people just making so much noise and saying that, well, this shows the level of corruption. How can this man, who doesn't do anything? And then that president came on TV and explained that they have complained several times that this guy is not qualified. He's not qualified, doesn't know. And every time he confuses the people, and his signage is terrible, and it doesn't pass for the South African standards, not to even talk about the world standards. And so.
Now, we gather also that this press conference is being held, and Solomon Jojo Kobina is a man in Pretoria, South Africa. He's joining us over the telephone again. Hello, Jojo.
Hello, Kemini.
Thank you very much for your time once again. Tell us what was addressed at this press conference.
I must tell you, Kemini, very interesting revelations at the conference. The man, the interpreter, who has been at the center of controversy, his name is Samsanka Jansi. And, interestingly, today, the Deputy Minister for People Living with a Disability held a press conference to clarify the issues about how come the guy was contracted to interpret the session for deaf people. And what she said was that they have been trying to trace the organization that gave them the man, and they have that organization has vanished to thin air.
I see.
And they don't know how come the organization in charge of a particular that puts the man in charge of signing for the whole world. And one of the interesting things is that this man has also been on radio this morning apologizing for messing up. That's what he said, that he's apologizing for messing up that particular day. And his what do you call it? His explanation is that he's schizophrenic, and so that day he had a schizophrenic attack, and he was seeing angels, and so he panicked, and he was tired, and so that was why he lost his guard, and he couldn't interpret very well. So that is what
he is schizophrenic, and
yes.
And on that day he had a crisis and was seeing angels.
Yeah, I tell you.
And that's reason enough to mess up like that.
And so, I mean, many people were questioning and finding out exactly what happened, because according to sign languages, but you have to show emotions on your face. I mean, because when you're signing, but the man was very straight, and none of the languages, the 11 official languages of South Africa, none of the local, none of the languages. I mean, the people could identify what he was signing. So it looks like it was a completely confusing moment.
You'd expect that when you see angels, you'd have some sort of emotion on your face. But anyway, how do South Africans feel about this response from this young man?
I mean, people have been, the media has been very harsh on the South African government, the ANC government, and they're saying if this man, they will just question, well, how come nobody identified the background of this particular gentleman before? And we were wondering, well, there's so many world leaders who were talking, and if this man says he's schizophrenic, that means that he may have a violent past, and he may have attacked them. And so people are questioning the whole recruitment, and how come the company that recruited a man to sign on that particular day has vanished, and the police cannot trace it. So the Deputy Minister for People Living with Disabilities said, well, they are now tracing, trying to find out where the people are so that they can bring them to justice. But one sad thing is that this particular issue has overshadowed the whole Madiba celebration. People filing past, because people are questioning how come and such a scandal will happen on that particular day.
I will leave it here for now, Jojo. Thank you very much once again. Jojo Kobina is a reporter in Pretoria, South Africa. Let's do some other stories now. And the U.S. State Department has said it is considering all options, including sanctions towards Ukraine, as a political crisis there continues. It follows attempts by riot police to dislodge anti-government protesters from their strongholds in the capital. The U.S. warned Ukraine not to use its armed forces against civilians. U.S. officials say the Ukrainian Defense Minister Pavlo Lepdiev said his government would not use the army against the protesters. The weeks of demonstrations in the center of Kyiv have paralyzed this country of 46 million people. From Ukraine, let's check out some showbiz news. An Afro-pop singer, Becca, is set to repeat her annual ritual of treating her female fans to a night of exclusive entertainment at the Girl Talk concert in Ghana. According to organizers, this year's concert will be bigger than the previous editions.
The award-winning musician disclosed plans for her annual Becca Girl Talk concert at a press soiree in Accra. The concert itself, slated for December 20 at the National Theatre in Accra, has a theme and a dress code.
This year is all about love. We believe that as women, if we love ourselves, we're going to be loved back. We're also going to be talking about hygiene and how to take care of yourself, because we believe it's really important as women to take care of ourselves. And as you can see, it's the ultimate girls' night out. We're going to be having fun and learning at the same time. So 20th of December, there's no place to be but the National Theatre, 8 p.m. prompt. Don't forget to wear your African attire or something made in Ghana. Very important.
Deputy Tourism, Culture and Creative Minister Jifa Gomashi commended Becca for her initiative, which seeks to empower women in the country.
She gives me hope, and I'm hoping that young people will learn from her and take their destiny into their own hands and allow their imagination, their creativity, their talent to drive them towards the job that they want to do. And in doing that also, you get opportunity to also employ other people or give your service to other people.
Some patrons at the soiree expressed their support to Becca.
Well, I think the concept is good. Why can't girls have their day and have fun? And indeed, if girls are going to love each other and come back and love us, then I think we are all behind it.
I would say on the 20th of December at the National Theatre, Ghana would be at a standstill because all the ladies will be under one roof. And if you're not there, it means you're missing out, because ladies rock and we run the world. So if you really want to run the world, then please be the best lady and be at the National Theatre on the 20th, because my baby sister will be rocking. We'll be rocking hard.
Well, as has been the tradition over the years, guys, you are not welcome, of course, at this girly concert.
You're watching News Today, and our main news again. Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security calls for prosecution of persons found culpable of financial irregularities with regards to public funds. Thousands continue to pour in to pay last respect to late South African President Nelson Mandela. Thank you very much for staying through. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. Enjoy the rest of our programs. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amano. Bye-bye.